Right? And I'm not playing no games. Yeah.
Pops, and welcome. Saturday morning cartoons, another Popspective X-Men animated series. We have moved through the first season. We're into the third episode of season 2. It's titled Whatever It Takes. And gotta be honest, the Shadow King, kind of a weird one. Like, I guess I didn't remember this episode like really much at all. And in hindsight, I have to give the creators a lot of credit for trying to bring in something that is like not only like supernatural but it's also like strange. Like it's almost like a villain or a antagonist associated really with Xavier and his son David Holler, the Legion character. That was what was adapted into the Legion show. But here we have an interesting continuation of the incidents of the last episode with Morph. Right, Morph was didn't make it out of the early episode, but then last we saw him. He's been resurrected. Like Mr. Sinister has brought him back. He's controlling him. Mr. Sinister, of course, was defeated at the end of the last episode after attacking Scott and Jean, and then Morph just basically makes his own escape, and now Wolverine is going to go after Morph. Morph is the only one Wolverine says that makes him happy, makes him smile. So there you go. But the story centers around an astral plane, like a tear, and it's in Africa. It's seen by a young man named Mijnari. I may be saying that right. His friends can't see it. He can see it. And he's super powered. Like he's super fast, right? He's some sort of mutant. Now, Jean Grey is on Cerebro, and she senses this, and she talks to the X-Men about it. Storm knows who Majari is, right? And then we get the intro of Shadow King. He comes through this astral plane tear, attacks, and basically enters the body of Mijnari. Now, when the X-Men arrive, really it's Storm and Rogue, they realize the village is on fire, and it was Mijnari who started it all. Like Shani is there. She's this lady that's explaining everything. Turns out she's actually his mother, and Storm is the godmother. The Storm refers to him as her son, right? And it's because at birth, he wasn't breathing, and Storm helped bring him to life. Like so it was her powers that really kind of helped him even exist. They're all very, very connected. And something happened yesterday. It's tied to this astral plane. And of course, Storm is like, oh, it's the Shadow King, right? Now, when the Shadow King is kind of brought into things, Storm volunteers to let Shadow King inside her to save the boy. And of course, Rogue is freaking out. Rogue wasn't like, you can't do that. You're going to make him so much more powerful, which really is his plan. It's his scheme. If I can get inside Storm, if I can lure Storm here through the boy, get into Storm, now I have her powers that I can use and control and gain, more control into the natural world. Well, Rogue tries an absorption effort, right? She tries to attack Shadow King, but that's not going to work. And ultimately, Storm is possessed by the Shadow King. Now, the Shadow King is monologuing because, yeah, that's the thing for sure. And this episode definitely has one. Rogue is easily dispatched, like no ability there to hold up against, a Shadow King enhanced version of Storm. Mijnari doesn't want to give up. He wants to help. He's like, this is my mom. Basically, she's like my mom. She's my surrogate mom, my second mom. Now, what's interesting is Storm has some semblance of consciousness. Like she's able to do something. And what she decides to do is she will fly and fly and fly and fly so high that there will be no oxygen. And I don't know, it's unclear if she's thinking that this will sacrifice herself. But ultimately what it does is it forces the Shadow King out of her because, there's no oxygen. Like it can't live. The Shadow King would die if it stayed inside Storm, who could die. Now, the Storm is falling to the earth. Rogue catches her, of course. And now the Shadow King doesn't know where to go. The Shadow King has to find somewhere to go. So it chases down Mizunari, and he's running as fast as he possibly can because he can see this tear. He can see this astral plane. Even Rogue and Storm can't see it. That's what's happening. So Rogue and Mizunari have this plan of sort of like taking him near this mountain where this astral plane is. They can get him inside of it. And once they get him inside, they can figure out, how to close it, maybe. Or it's the plan is a little sketchy. To be honest, like I don't quite get the plan because no one has control over the astral plane itself. No one has control over the tear. There's a quick comment back at the beginning when Beast was with them when they first discovered it. Was well, maybe when Bishop had come, it's created the tear, but that's the only side remark that's remotely tied to explaining the astral plane tear. Anyway, the plane is closing. Mizunari so fast manages to get inside, and the Shadow King is inside. Now how does he get out? Right, so he's trying to figure out how to get out. They're looking for Storm and Rogue are there looking for him, pounding on the rock. They don't see anything. He ultimately sticks his hand through, and that's how they find him. They save him, and the Shadow King is essentially trapped again. Now, I mentioned Morph and Wolverine very briefly. There is a little bit of the backstory with them. Wolverine does track him down in the Amazon. He's working as a bartender. They throw fists, which, by the way, Morph holding up to Wolverine didn't really make sense to me. Like, I thought he was just basically a shapeshifter, and the fact that he can do this didn't make sense. Now, what he does that's interesting is he changes to Jean first and mocks him, right? Which kind of like messes with Wolverine's head a little bit, but it ultimately just makes him angry, makes him berserker. And they get confronted later on in a mine shaft, and there is a funny line. Wolverine does get probably some of the best lines of the show, even though sometimes they're so cheesy or cheeky, they don't really work. Definitely as an adult. I love the line because he says about being angry. He's like, well, you think I was angry? See me at the line in the post office. I don't know about anyone else, but can you imagine standing there and it's Logan at the post office? I don't know. There is something that just makes me laugh thinking about that. Like, it just seems like it should be a panel in a comic book, but not today. Anyway, so Morph actually transforms into another Wolverine, and they're fighting for a brief moment. Then he turns into a panther and a rhino, and actually Wolverine actually does get hurt. Morph does transform into Sabretooth. They throw down a little bit more, and then ultimately Morph has this, because he's in this struggle of like the Mr. Sinister version of him and his original self that knows the X-Men mean well and are good. And he runs off and basically goes, I just have to get through this by myself. And Wolverine's left there saying, I'll be there for you. The X-Men will be there for you. Now, I don't think Morph hears any of that, but that's the dialogue that's there for us, the audience. Then we have, and this is what the show basically was doing credit scenes long before there were credit scenes. That's right. This show kind of has a stinger, and it's Xavier and Magneto. There was an avalanche at the end of the season, end of the episode, and they're there together because they've been duped by Morph and that kind of. That's what had happened before. There's this avalanche, and they climb out, but they're not where they thought they would be. No, they're in a place called the Savage Land. It's this hidden valley. Xavier can walk. Magneto has no powers. Actually, Xavier has no powers. And you have these riders on pterodactyls that attack them, and they get caught up in the current as they fall over a waterfall. And that's how the episode ends. So you have sort of like the Xavier storyline happening sideways, which, to be honest, has been the kind of the theme most of the time. And I talked about this briefly. Like, it is important a lot of times to get Xavier kind of like out of the mix because he is so powerful. Like, it's a very difficult thing to write a story that's believable against many of the villains and challenges because of his abilities are so strong. Same with Magneto. Magneto is so powerful and strong. To have him in certain scenarios isn't going to work because he has the ability to use a power that is so strong that very few things can really, hold up against him. Like, it basically even remotely lasts. So they have them off on their own little journey as we move forward. And I have to be honest, I am looking forward to the next episode because I think this is the direction, And again, I think it's the secondary character, but it seems like it makes no sense why Marvel did not go this direction to bring mutants into their MCU. And that's because we're going to get Omega Red. We went through all this trouble to do Black Widow. We went through all this trouble to do Russia, to bring in Red Guardian, do these different things. But we somehow skipped this concept of bringing in Omega Red. It was like a softball, which means obviously they're not going to do it because, they're Marvel. They don't know what they're doing. Anyway, I'm loving my Saturday morning with you guys talking about cartoons. I hope you guys are enjoying this looking back. If it makes you want to watch it or you watched it and you have your comments or thoughts, and I love your thoughts on Shadow King. It is not one of those comic books that I'm really even that familiar with. It's like, I remember I have read it and kind of moved on. It's that element of that Xavier and supernatural type stuff that I didn't have nearly as much interest in as I do basically like cool heroes in tights fighting. Like it's two different things. I thought it translated very well on the FX show. The Legion shows were pretty good. And I didn't watch all of it because I think I bailed out in season 2, but I think it went on for 3 seasons. So I'm not totally affluent in the Shadow King mythos as I probably should be. So anyway, you guys tell me what you guys think. Thank you so much for being with me, and I am Pops.
I'm Ross. All I do is chill. My life is a thrill, for real, Bob Ross. I be too calm for the drama. You don't wanna cause a problem, I'll solve it, Bob Ross.